We will begin by say to welcome to the Colorado Natural Medicine Advisory Board Subcommittee on Indigenous and Religious Use and Outreach. And welcome to those participating in this webinar. I know you're there. I'll see some of you are welcome. You're very, very welcome here. And it's a little past 1 p.m. on December 8th, 2023. I am Dr. Clarissa Pincula Estes Reyes, and I am the chair of the Indigenous and Religious Use and Outreach Subcommittee. And I am declaring that we do have a quorum present for our meeting today. Declaring is not quite my language, but that's what this was read it as it was. The purpose of this meeting is to act on important business related to the practice of natural medicine in the state of Colorado. The board will make its decisions on agenda items today based upon written materials provided for its consideration in advance of this meeting. You all received that packet, possibly even more than once. And so hopefully you have been able to read it and make some notes for yourself about what you'd like to say about it. The public is welcome to listen. As always, the public should not address the board unless requested by the board, but you certainly are belonging here and welcome to listen. As a friendly reminder to board members, please note that some of the material contained in the agenda packet may be deemed confidential. In addition, the board should not discuss the issuance of confidential letters of concern or seek legal guidance in an open session. Such matters will be moved into executive session for discussion. Members of the public will be asked to leave the meeting during the executive closed session. After an executive session, the board will let me start over again, please. After an executive session, the board will vote on agenda items discussed in the executive session. So there is something there as well. I'm going to do the roll call now and just say present. Right. We're mostly present or whatever condition your condition is in. I am present. And Dr. Sofia Chavez.
Present.
Chavez.
Present.
Thank you. Skippy Upton Misero.
Present and hungry. That's my condition, but I'm working on it.
Stan, me too. Just spare time for breakfast. And Ricardo Vaca.
Present. Hey, everybody.
Hey, good to see you. Let me see. A few housekeeping items as we get started. Let me see. Hold on just a second. I'll have to check something. But here, I just want to see if there are other board members present. Often Dr. Siswick joins us, for instance. Yeah. We're gonna see. No. Okay. I think that is all the board members that are present, those who just said their piece. Alrighty then. We will move now to ask people to turn their cell phones off or also to mute their buttons in case they have a party going on in the next have the kitties and the doggies here having a convention and external market doing things like that. So, just so we kind of silencio, so we kind of peace to our work. I'm going to pass now the baton to Miss Lori Bratton. Miss Bratton.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to announce that I'm president, the program director, and we have Amanda Wares today, that she is the manager for centralized services. She's helping us today with the webinar. We also have Monica Sutherland. who is a policy analyst. She's also supporting our team. And we have Kathy Duran, who is Director Model Program Manager with us today. And I do see a board member. We have Lundy with us. Thank you, Lundy, for joining. We also have the AGG here with us. Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself and any team members that might be here?
Sure. I'm Ashley Carter. I'm counsel for this subcommittee, and I'm with the Attorney General's office.
Thanks, Ashley. And we have Sam Barami. As we know, he's our senior advisor and essential member of our program development. So thank you, Sam. And I'll pass it back to you, Chair.
But welcome all of you who are from Dora and you, the governor's office. I love seeing your smiling face. You are so helpful to us in so many ways. Ms. Duran and Mr. Grumpy, we've had a long time with you, with all of your helps, all of your putting together so much behind the scene. And I want to acknowledge that before all the other people present here, because this could not happen without all of you, but the AGs of it from all of you. So thank you so very much. Appreciate it. If we had to do it ourselves, we would have a meeting in about 2028 or in year 3000. So thank you. You're a patient. Alrighty then, we're going to move to the approval of minutes. You have the minutes before you. They are from, let me check my note. They are from Friday, October 13th. Do you see any additions or changes that need to be made to that? If so, please raise your hand and we'll go call on you. When you look at the minutes, you see the amendments amendment work that we have done. And I want to appreciate the board members. We have had so many meetings since we began to convene, starting in January this year, which is now 11 months of yearly company. You have been faithful, loyal, contributing, participating, verbal, giving your ideas, giving your opinions, giving your certainties, and you are very appreciated. Without you, this could not happen. You have been faithful in your attendance, even though it's we work for, as you know, a lot of money. You think it's zero, and it takes a lot of time to read all the material, to be prepared, to think about these matters in most ethical, open ways. You have done that, and I appreciate you very much. We all do. So, moving now to the minutes, I will need, if there are no changes, deletions, or additions, to ask someone to move that we accept the minutes, please. So, who is that, please?
Ricardo.
Ricardo. Thank you, Mr. Baca. All right, second, please.
Second, this is Sophia.
Perez. Alrighty then. All in favor of accepting the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Objections, say nay. Any? It's passed as written, and we will also, Donna, you have to look at the direct wording to get it just right. Please give me a motion to delegate authority of signature of minutes to the program director, Miss Lori Bratton. Give me a motion to that effect so that she can carry that through.
I'll make a motion to delegate those responsibilities.
Thank you. Second. Bishop.
I'll second. This is Sophia.
Alrighty then. All in favor of moving this to Miss Bratton? Aye.
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 We abstention. Great. Just pass. Thank you very much. Now, the next agenda item is the program director's report, and I will pass this back again to Ms. Lori Bratton.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind you all that the consolidated recommendations after each meeting, it takes us a little bit of time, but we're updating that document and adding it to your folder. So you should have version 6 in the folder, which has all of from last month to now, the updates included. It's moving along really well. Thank you for all your hard work on that. I also wanted to remind you that the division has hired someone that oversees all of the board emails in a sense. And so you would have received emails to do a cybersecurity training. That is what we do across the board. All of us do that cybersecurity training, sometimes monthly. We have a lot of trainings in town. Please make sure you do that. It may be from an unusual person that you're not normally getting emailed to. If you have any questions, please just reach out to me and let me know so we can talk about it. And if you have any conflicts with meeting times of any sort coming up in the next few weeks, please also reach out to me so we can make sure that we'll have a quorum at the meetings each month. All right. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Bratton, how long is that cyber training? Because all of us have private practices as well as other commitments with family, children, grandparents, and so on.
Yes. It's usually only 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. They're very short. They're very easy to go through the questions, multiple choice. It's fairly straightforward, and most of you will already have been exposed to the information, shouldn't have a problem completing it very quickly.
So it's a training, but there's a test attached?
There's a test attached at the end, yes. It's just maybe 4 or 5 questions.
The questions
4.
took me 7 minutes this last go around.
If you fail it, you can take it again.
Yeah. It's easy. It's very easy. It gives you multiple options to try again. So
If you need any tips, feel free to reach out. I have quite a few tips on that.
Right. Some people have special needs in terms of accessing testing materials. So again, anyone who does relate, if you will also talk to Ms. Bratton about that, you get the accommodation you need. This is very important. It's something that I brought up in the last few weeks here with admin, because we have not discussed it in the past. And I myself have a learning disability, and I do pretty well most of the time. But every now and then I need an accommodation. So just to say that now, let us go on with the next STEM here. Thank you, Ms. Bratton, again. Now we'd like to hear the Attorney General for their report. And Ms. Counselor Carter, where are you?
Yes, I'm here.
There you are. Thank you. So, go ahead.
Sure. I just have a quick reminder this month, along with the cybersecurity concern being brought up, reminder to just always be using your official board email, or at least a business account or separate email when communicating about official board business. That's important for cybersecurity reasons, as well as if there are any core requests, having that separated is an important thing to remember to do. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Let's see here. Done. This is the first agenda item. It's the introduction of persons who are non-voting subcommittee participants. So we're going to ask each of you, and I'll call on to introduce yourself briefly. First of all, with us is Samuel Mix, cultural educator, Samuel Nez. Dr. Nez, will you say something about yourself, please?
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Samuel Nez. I am a cultural educator and practitioner of Curanderismo in the Denver metro area. Initially, I'm actually from New Mexico on the Navajo Nation. I grew up in Native American communities my whole life. My family is Native American. I hope to offer something from a cultural perspective, as well as a community perspective, which has always been my focus, is the community work. So happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nez. Our next person is Joseph. Is Medina? No? Yes? Medina? Are you here? Joseph is an agricultural consultant, and he's been here before. Let me see. Let me just go. There you are.
I'm here. Hi, how are you?
Medina, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tell us a little about yourself, briefly.
My name is Joseph Medina. I'm an agricultural consultant, and I'm also the owner and grower for Medina Farms, LLC. I'm located here in southeastern Colorado. I currently reside in La Pinta. Families basically from southern Colorado, Mora, Taos area. And that's about it.
Thank you so much. And also, Mr. Medina's name is not spelled out on the script, so if somebody could spell Mercy correctly, so I called him by the Lincoln. All right. Veronica, Lightning Horse, Perez. Where are you? Children. We're there. There, I see you. Right. If you might have stepped away for a momentito, I'll come back to you in a moment. Nenette, McNamara, family nurse practitioner, Southern Youth Tribe. Hola. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me here. My name is Nenette McNamara. I'm a nurse practitioner with the Southern Ute Indian tribe down in the southwest corner of Colorado in Ignacio. And I'm very appreciative of being able to sit in on this, so thank you.
Awesome. Glad you're here. And also Claudia, Claudia Barfoot. We're here.
I'm here. Hi, everyone. I'm a psychoanalyst, psychotherapist, and practitioner of curanderismo. I'm from Mexico and from the Yaqui tribe. And I wasn't born in the tribe, but my grandmother was. And that's why I'm here. And glad to be sitting here with all of you. I'm very proud and respectful of all your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barfoot. Allison Robinette. Allison Robinette is the DOR Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs. Are you here?
Yes, Allison had a conflict today, so Allison is not here.
Thank you so much. Don't we all have conflicts every single? Isn't that yes? All right. Well, we're looking for and Shelly Thompson. Shelly Thompson, I'm here. All right, let's go back. I get Veronica, Lightning Horse Perez. We go here.
Yes, hello. Sorry, technological conflict. So happy to be here. I was co-chief proponent on the campaign that got us here. I always have a hard time introducing myself. I'm a teacher. I work with people, facilitating them to find healing for themselves. I work with many different communities. I've recently been introduced in just taking it down to I'm a harm reducer. So that is really what I'm working on now, is just to spread as much awareness, reduce as much harm as possible, and get people asking questions of themselves and of the work and how we got here and what we plan to do with this. So I'm grateful to be here and support this continuing work and see the ripple effects of this incredible medicine.
Thank you. And that's very clear what you said. Harm reducer. Very good. Thank you so much. All right. One more time, Shelly Thompson. Yep. Yep, baby. Right. Very good. Another board member that is present on this meeting is when Buxton Andrade. I see her here. And also present is Lundy. So those two people are board members also, so they are present on this.
I'm here, yes. I just want to listen and learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much for appreciate it very much.
Same here. Thank you, Doctor.
Very much, Lindy. Glad you're here. All right. So, this is our second agenda item. Accelerated Training Program applicants. You review the Accelerated Training Program. We're reviewing the Accelerated Training Program applicants this year. And I hope everyone had the opportunity to review the two items in the packet regarding Accelerated Training Program applicants. So let's discuss. Now, we're getting, we're drawing the circle tighter. We're gonna let them up and move them out. You understand it? That means we're going to gather together our ideas and we're going to move them forward together to a concise, precise set of ideas written that holds together and will be the basis, the bedrock, the rootstock of our advisories to those who work for people, because we're all here working for others. And so, with regard to this, we need to discuss what qualification. English is not my first language. Stumbles. We're going to discuss what qualifications an applicant needs to have completed before they apply for a facilitator license in order to be approved for an accelerated training program. So, the question is this, specifically, what would be our recommendations or our advice an applicant needs to have completed before they apply for a facilitator license? What would our recommendations be for the criteria? Criteria is the operative word. That criteria. What aspects do they have? Ought they have? Must they have? Would be good that they have any of those ideals in order to apply and be approved for the accelerated treatment. I would open the floor now. Those of you who have ideas, just raise your hand. State this qualifies for this option or clarification. Don't move that. Keep it on the screen. You don't know. Sometimes they'll print it so tiny they can barely read it. But all right. It will be modified. We're not there yet. What are the criteria? Go back. Criteria. Meaning A, they must have. B, they ought to have. C, it would be good if they had. What are the criteria in your mind? Okay. In my mind, just briefly, in my mind, I would like to see people who have experience, who, preferably I would like to see years of experience, apprenticeship, that they are acolytes or members of, or learners or students of someone who has the credential or the credibility sometimes people don't define yours, but they show up the credibility. So just starting with that, I think I would like to talk about criteria in terms of experience. What do you think? How much experience should a person have in doing this work in order to qualify for this accelerated learning? Those who work practitioners, including that is always like Sprout. What do you think? Most of us have had very long years, decades long apprenticeship. That what do you think?
You have a couple of hands up. You have Veronica and Dr. Chavez.
All right, the scrolling of the things here, and the learned late words. Been related.
I would like to see a minimum of 3 years experience. I would also like to see a list of, I don't know if it would be referrals or credentials, but perhaps the names of the teachers or the facilitators in which you trained under, the length of time in which you trained under those teachers or those facilitators or those healers. Perhaps even a list of references of what specific tribes or ceremonies that you have been working with. And I would also like to see a brief description of a typical ceremony in which, if you've been doing this for several years, to be able to have an outline of how your ceremony goes, because I've worked and spoken with so many people, and there are so many different ways and different types of ceremonies. And a very incredible elder told me that, what we're really doing here, he was speaking in reference to sweat lodge, is very simple. Lodge is simple. You come and you sweat and you pray and you heal, and everything else is man. And because there are so many voices and trainings in this area, there's going to be a lot of different ceremonies as to, even things of simple, whether we're using sweetgrass or juniper, et cetera, but to have a bullet point of, this is my ceremony and this is how I've been doing it for years. This is what I personally would like to see.
Thank you. Dr. Chavez.
I would just like to say that I agree with Veronica with a lot of things that she said, a minimum of 2 to 3 years, and it should be well documented. An outline of how you prepare for a ceremony, or how you prepare for a ceremony, and how you prepare the individual for the ceremony, and then an outline of what takes place in the ceremony, literally breaking it down into steps. So if someone looked at your outline or your intention, that they would be able to see from the preparation of the individual to the individual's experience, and then afterwards, the processing or the integration of that experience. At least it's been in my experience with the different teachers that I've had, you go to an Indigenous workshop or you go to an Indigenous ceremony, and then there is the time that's given to process that experience and to have that, like with the plática. And at one of our last meetings, we talked about the ongoing group of supporters. And I have had Indigenous teachers that if something comes up, for example, during one of your ceremonies and you have a question, your support group. So who is that support group? And a lot of times that's going to come up with your documented teachers, because in most Indigenous groups, a teacher is a teacher for a lifetime. a colleague for a lifetime. And so your support group in discussing how that treatment went and, you know, bouncing ideas off them, that support system. But I think it's very necessary to have that referral system, to have it documented. How long have you been to the ceremonies? The other thing that's been coming up, at least in community, that I'm hearing out in the general public is, you know, in the work that we're doing, we talk a lot about diagnosis of PTSD, the PTSD and bipolar disorder, and how, you know, if they're diagnosed, what that looks like in a clinical setting. But both PTSD and bipolar disorders have been worked with by Indigenous people and Indigenous communities for a very long time. Many of the people who receive ayahuasca, psilocybin, and the different master or teacher plants by curanderos and curanderas have those diagnoses, and they're worked with very safely. So I think that if we have the applicant bring their documentation of who their teachers were, how long they've been doing this work, what a treatment looks like, what the process and integration looks like for the people that they will be working with, who is their support system afterwards. I think if they have that, they qualify for this option. And when it says, how are these qualifications verified? The individual needs to provide that information. And then how is it the qualifications verified? I'm guessing Dora's going to do that. And then when it says, you know, what aspects of these requirements modified, I guess we learn what's working and what's not working as we move forward. For example, you know, maybe somebody gave them a really good reference and they're very well connected, but they really don't have all the experience that the paper says they have. You know, so how are we going to make sure that what people are presenting us is actually what's happening? You know, we've talked about having mentors. You know, like when you train in New Mexico, that's my experience, New Mexico, Colorado, or Mexico, an elder is with you. You know, you're just not, first of all, you're spending years with the elder learning. And then when you finally get to fly on your own, the elder is standing right there by you to make sure that it's running smoothly. And I think that we should set that up as well to make sure that that's the case. Anyway, I've said a lot, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think that people, I want to acknowledge that Dr. Cicely has also joined us. He is appointment. One moment, please. I have to scroll through all of the people to see it really went down, check it up. It is a little wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think some good ideas have been put forth, and I know that we do have to reach a certain level of specifics. So, you know, who qualifies for this option? It is interesting. Like, I'd love more thinking behind this idea of at least 3 years of documented experience. That does resonate with me. This isn't where my specific expertise is, and so I'd love to have further discussion around that. And then maybe something else to consider for the references, which I think are necessary here. Perhaps including one guardrail there that says at least one of the references must have been this individual's teacher. And then, of course, we would just need to make sure that going to this last question, who is managing this administratively, making sure that whoever is managing this process is fully equipped and prepared to check references, a process that will likely require a team of people who can help us communicate and interpret. So kind of wanted to kind of include that thinking there. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Iffy.
Thanks, Dr. E. Just to zoom back in from our previous meeting, full board meeting, what I had as sort of means of accreditation would include the state-specified training and exam, Indigenous or just apprenticeship, hours of experience. And then the other thing that we talked about is possibly like tribal council approval. We haven't mentioned that here, so I think we're holding in on the right bits. We don't have to talk about the exam and training because that's redundant with the other group. So A, raise the potential council approval, and if we think that that is a viable method and what that might look like. And then I wanted to just ask questions. I don't think I'm the one who would have the answers here, but I know that things like apprenticeship and experience hours are going to have to be codified in a measurable way for them to be effective in law and to be overseen by Dora, or whomever. And so one thought, one question. The thought is, if you've apprenticed with someone, I would then, Ricardo, you were getting at this, I would think that anyone that you're listing as someone you are apprenticing with, you would need to have them sort of sign off on that. I went to Harvard, but I dropped out. I didn't get a degree, right? Like you need to have the actual thing that I finished. Because I know people that have trained with curanderos for a year plus, and then it's just, they weren't right for it. And they're going to want to drop out because maybe they found another path, but we don't want incomplete training or disaffected people being like, all right, I'm doing it my own way and I can just write this thing on a piece of paper. So I would think we'd want the validation of the people that they apprentice with. And those of you who do that, I'd love to hear if you think that's true. And then on the hours of experience, 3 years sounds great. What do I know? It sounds very comprehensive. But what I don't know is, in that model of apprenticeship, could you start an apprenticeship over 3 years and only do 3 ceremonies in a year? Right? Like is there an hour qualification in addition to the duration qualification? Those are some questions that I have.
Good question, Skippy. Thank you. I just want to interject this here. The curanderismo, as in Santeria, another sacrament ceremony endeavors, trying to put a grid over that belongs to another culture, the older culture of academic spreads, may not be the final place we wind up, because the 3 years of experience, I think, to add to that, this is like what Perez mentioned first, have to think about what that really means with the people that might have taught. You will walk with people. You eat together. You help take care of their children. You advise them about their finance. I mean, it's a very familial relationship. Is how I put the techniques, or some people call them modalities. We don't call them that. It is a natural progression of here. Hold the cedar while I light it. Okay, come over here now. Take the metal this way, over this person, right here. It's over their ear, something like that. It's a lot like teaching cooking. It's a lot like teaching building a house or learning to grow food. So just keeping that in mind, that you're about her deep validity in those ways of training teaching. But I don't think that we could verbally make accommodations for those. So, Claudia, Barfoot, please go.
I agree with everything that everybody's sharing. Actually, what came to my mind is the minimum is 3 years. I would say 3 to 5, just to have like a solid experience. And in terms of references, I was thinking about all like 360. You need to know who the teachers are, the elders, right? Like all of the peers, and maybe the references of a couple of people you've worked with that have done it with you, and they can speak for, about the experience. Another thing that came to mind, it's all like people need to write like an essay or something, or sharing their own healing journey. I kind of feel that also when people, there's something about the way people speak that you can also like hear when healing is there, right? When people actually know and have walked the walk. So I think I would be interested in can people actually talk about their own healing? Because I find that the best teachers are the ones that already have walked the walk, right? And just to bring up one thing that I find as a problem in terms of having the references of elders and teachers, I think about a couple of my teachers in Mexico. I mean, they live in La Sierra, right? They don't even have light. It's hard to get back to them. At least for me, at this point, it's hard to actually find them. It's possible, but it's hard. In terms of giving references, and that's it.
Thank you. Dr. Nash.
Hello, thank you all for sharing. Skippy, you actually brought something up that reminded me of one of the previous meetings that we had, especially when it came to the references. So as somebody who is a practitioner at curanderismo and has been what we refer to as a teacher or a maestro for several years now, we actually, my mother and myself have had a group of apprentices, 7 to be specific on that. And we made it very clear that they had to walk with us for a minimum of 4 years. And then after that, they could continue to walk with us and continue to support us and continue to help with our next group. So I definitely would like to push that 3 to 5 year minimum. I've seen various groups have kind of a smaller minimum and kind of give a 1 year. In my opinion, it takes 1 year before you're even allowed to work in community, before you're even allowed to really put your hands on somebody to work with individuals. And then after that 1 year, I mean, that's when you start to basically walk in community while we hold your hand, right? While we get to see who you are as a practitioner. But on the references aspect, Claudia brought up a really important piece to that is, it is sometimes hard to reach some of our elders. It is hard to reach some of our teachers, especially those that have learned in very rural or indigenous communities. So I wanted to bring up kind of a facet or a concept that hopefully a lot of people are familiar with is we don't call ourselves curanderos. We don't call ourselves curanderas. This is something that community gives you that title. Yeah. And so back to that reference, the referencing aspect, I think it would be important that community kind of has a say in who gets to do these things, whether it's a form of signatures or whether it's a form of reference. I know a lot of people who will go in, they'll take the weekend warrior workshop and all of a sudden they feel like they're qualified. No, I want community to be the ones to give those titles and deem who is safe, who is respectable to provide these medicinas as well. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there from my perspective, and what I've seen in my communities and in my groups is this is something that community kind of bestows a right as well. And the same thing even with tribal councils. There is an aspect of that as well, but I do want to kind of point out that there are a lot of indigenous natives here who don't have census numbers. I'm very lucky that, I am from a reservation and I do have a census number, but I know and recognize not everybody has that. But I also recognize that people can be adopted into those circles. And so if that is something that maybe they can reach out and kind of get a reference letter from tribal councils that have seen them in community, that have seen them work with those members, that is something I would like to back as well. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Skipping.
Yeah, Sam or Samuel, what you prefer? Can I skip like a dumb follow-up question just for my own edification? Yeah, I appreciate that. So I can understand the importance of the honorific coming from community. There's through that group affirmation that's earned over time. But I wonder how that works functionally. So you bring someone in, you set a standard, you say minimum 4 years. I guess how does that work? Like, at what point does the community come to that conclusion? How do they come to it? And how does that interface with your own time frame around, the 4 years, or someone else who might be doing it differently?
It's gonna vary. It's definitely gonna vary with a lot of Indigenous groups. There's no one all be all. I knowing Nenette versus knowing Lakota, they're two different tribes, and they're gonna have different principles and different values. But you'll see that there are some similarities. So like you'll see, with the number 3, with the number 4, and you also see some of those like community bases. And I do have a concern. And I do want to voice this concern when it comes to getting references from community, because we know practitioners and we know individuals out there. Well, they'll just ask all of their friends and their family to sign off. But I think there should be a credential. There really should be a credential. In my practices and in my tradition, somebody isn't even considered remotely an elder until they've reached the age of 52. So even getting some of those references from community, there should still be a standard from those community members, right? I don't want somebody to get signed off from, a 16-year-old who, can write in 3 different signatures, but like somebody who can also prove some of those credentials. To just kind of give another example of like, I'm a trainer in 5NP auricular acupuncture, and those that get signed off for the other people just so they can be practitioners, they have to have a qualification as well. They have to be able to provide something, even if it's just a little bit of alphabet soup at the end of their name. So whether it's an association to community or an association with age or demographic, I mean, there's different points to that, and I understand your concern as well, but there's not going to be one all be all, and ultimately it's going to be the voice of community, and that I think that's an appreciation from this group and the board is listening and kind of seeing what that looks like. And I know that there's a time frame on this, but hopefully some other people have some input or aspects to kind of what that looks like.
Thank you. Mr. Medina.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have, just kind of a little input, I guess, just from my experience. Like, for instance, whenever we get, as far as years is concerned, for sweat lodge, typically, you're running like a 4-year cycle. Like Samuel says, your 3 and 4 year, and your times are very important too. But, this is also something that you can't fake. I mean, you can try to fake it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of, you have to think of it also in a sense of, this is something, a responsibility that the creator has bestowed upon you, right? It's not something that, I mean, people too, I mean, we can see the energy or the force or, what magic or, whatever it is that your essence contains, what I mean? But it's something too, you have to be careful. There's obviously a lot of charlatans out there, a lot, there are some, I've seen a lot of it, not in just Indigenous culture, but you see it in Christianity. You see it in all forms of religion as well, as far as, people, faking it to make it. So it's also important to note that too, that, most of these, I would hope anyways, that if somebody was trying to get qualified for these or wanting to do this, it was probably something that, that was lent to them from somebody else, or, it's not something so easily as we, like to try to compact like a resume or, it's a responsibility too, that, and it's from the most unlikely people sometimes that you don't ever know. And like the lady was speaking about earlier about your, wanting to see if you walk the walk, right? And I think most people, I think you can tell right away. So there does have to be some kind of, I would like to, to see, like maybe like an interview process or something, so you can see and talk to these people. Because that's really, I mean, the psilocybin, the mushrooms, the medicine itself is one thing. But as a human being, we carry that medicine to make it stronger. It's like turning oil or, something bad into something good, because that's basically what you're doing, right? You're taking somebody that's in trauma, or say you have your veterans with your PTSD or, whatever the diagnosis is, if there is a diagnosis. So, you have to take that into context too, as far as who that person is and what is their intent too, right? You know what I mean? Because we also have to separate, we have an American society that's based off of capitalistic culture, whereas if, you get this, then you're going to feel that. You get this med, you're supposed to feel this way. You know what I mean? But with Indigenous, it's not that way. You know, it works. Your medicine has to work with your healer. You know, and I, from my experience, the stronger the healer, the stronger the medicine. You know what I mean? And you can tell. I mean, from my, you know, brief experience in it, as far as working with like true medicine men, and in that sense, you know, there's a right way, but I think the creator probably has chosen that in a way too. So in a sense, there's a lot of work that we can do to kind of implement, you know, some simple form or some simple way. But at the same time too, I think you'll know, you know what I mean, when somebody comes in, what their intent is. I would hope as long as that governing body, you know, that's doing the, you know, they have to kind of be on that same page too, right? You know, we got to kind of be on that same page of what are we trying to heal here, or what are we trying to do, you know, and then case by case study too. You know, there's certain healers that deal with certain things better than others do, depending on their experience or their expertise as well. Just like with anything, right? Anything specialized when it comes to, you know, when the doctor specializes in something, or, you know, whatever that case may be. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I appreciate your perspective on as the person who grows the sacramental. It's very unique. Let's see. Dr. Chavez.
I think what everyone is saying, we're all on the same page as far as length of time. And, you know, we're talking about governing board that can perhaps look at the different aspects of what we're talking about, because we've talked about experience, we've talked about referrals, we've talked about the different things that are important, or areas that are important to have documented, to present to the governing body that's then going to evaluate the individual qualifications. And, you know, working with apprentices over all these years, what I've learned is that, you know, some of the apprentices may be very strong in one area. For example, if they're registered nurses, what I've noticed, or if they're psychologists, what I've noticed is bring a lot of the Western model, which is fine because it's part of their personality. It's part of the way that they've designed their work. And so, you know, they have a different look to their work, even though they include ceremony and they trained in curanderismo. It has a lot more Western qualities, Western medicine qualities to it. And they're very good curanderos and curanderas. They're excellent healers. And so we will need to, you know, decide what those qualifications need to look like, but then also to be in a flexible container so that perhaps the individual who has a license in psychology and has just a lot of education on psychology, and you know, she may not have all of the experience in ceremony that some people have, but when that individual goes into work, they go into the zone. And you know, that's what we were just talking about. Like when I listen to Mr. Medina, I'm thinking of when I'm working with plants, and plants will take me into the zone. So everyone's going to have their different strengths. But I think if we can decide on what those areas are, you know, like is an essay included in there? Making sure that everyone has a good opportunity, because some people may not have all of the same amount of ceremony experience, but they have a lot of experience being in those environments with their teacher. So it's going to look a little different for everyone, but I think if we can get down the areas and say, okay, this is what they need. They need experience in ceremony. They need experience with safe practices. Whatever it is that we're going to come up with, and then just be flexible enough, because people they're going to have their strengths in different areas. So if we can help individuals so that they can qualify because they're capable of doing that. But everybody has said really good comments, you know, making sure that those referrals are not from friends and family, that they're documented hours of experience, and whatever those documented hours may look like, so that we can group it all together and make sure that we're giving everybody an opportunity to be able to qualify. Because we have a lot of beautiful healers in the Indigenous community, and I would hate because they didn't have enough of the Western model piece, or this what you just making sure that we have a flexible container that includes everyone's gifts and strengths. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that Mr. Medina was speaking. It would falsify references because many people have been trained by their relatives, so they have to keep that up. That their friends and their family may write references for them because they are the people who train. Because as you have stuff to do. Veronica, lightning edit.
Thank you. So I think one of the big key pieces that we're going to have to look at is who is evaluating this, and do they know what they're looking at? If I have, someone that has 10 years of experience, 20 years of experience, and they come in, they're most likely going to be able to evaluate the person that is sitting in front of them or that they're talking to pretty quickly. We're so used to having the resumes and the paperwork, and that's what we look at and we judge. And I've seen resumes, and I've had the person come in that has the resume and that this does not match at all. I like the idea of the essay for sure, because there's a lot of things in language patterns and stories and what you've learned that you can't get out of a list of names of teachers or experience, which is the paperwork. I do understand, and that's why I feel that paperwork should be there. But one of my main teachers has passed away. So how do I, put him down as a reference when he's on the other side? And then when I put myself in the shoes of seeking this fast track to be qualified at a job that I've already been doing for a very long time, there's a workaround that I'm going to have to do at an internal level with that, which I can definitely be more comfortable if I'm sitting and interviewing with the person that does have 20 years of experience and knows what they're looking at. But then I also have to ask the question of whatever training program that's going to be set up for the state, is that a 6-month program? And if so, then why am I having to show up and prove that I've got 35 years of experience knowing what I'm doing, when it's everybody else can show up with nothing and do 6 months to a year and get their certification and go? I think that's something that we should also look at. But I'm also understanding the need to simplify this and make it as very clear as possible, because that's the world we're living in. And when it comes to this medicine, I don't know about you, but this medicine has really taught me that y'all are trying to control something, and I'm trying to teach you that you don't have control. And that's where I find the challenge in things like this, regulated doses and everything like that is we're teaching you don't have control, and you're trying to control it. And if we can bust it down to A, B, and C, and D, where the person that is reviewing, or the people that are reviewing this, have a ton of experience, they know what they're looking at pretty much right off the bat before they even look at the paperwork, that would be an A. B, you have X amount of years of experience. C, you can say this is where you've trained, this is what you have learned from that training. And then, what it was at C, then D being, able to submit an essay that's some pretty clear bullet points for the state. That might be something that the state is easy to get behind, because that makes sense. That's what we're used to seeing. That's what we're used to doing. Because if I go with the logic of what I have been taught, I need to have that student come in and demonstrate to me live what it is that you know. And through that demonstration, I will be able to see where your starting point is, because you've shown me what you know and you've shown me what you don't know. And that's a live demonstration test. That's not paperwork. That is a stress test. That is real. That is right in front of me. And I would love to see something like that, but I also don't know who would be willing to show up and engage in something like that, or who would be the participant that would say, I'll undergo the medicine so that this person can prove they know what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're asking. How do you prove to me that you know what you're doing? And then on the other side, the person going, do I want to prove to you that I know what I'm doing, and what is the value in that for me? So maybe there is value in this for me, but don't be shooting down my ego or my knowledge or making this so difficult and challenging for me that I just say screw it and just keep doing what I'm doing. And then we lose that valuable wisdom and expertise in these communities. So that's what I'm feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. To respond first,
Sorry.
I believe that the advisory subcommittee here, who has practitioners on it, will be advisory to the people who will be overseeing application. In other words, people can certainly come and ask questions of us and ask expertise. And possibly we might be able to do a training. We do it informally within our subcommittee meeting here. I often talk to people about how to approach who are practitioners. And it's like some of our board members call Western medicine traditional medicine, but we call our medicine traditional medicine. So just elucidating that, meaning educating people.
Yes.
In the way letting them know, how things move. And you're right. We're walking into worlds here. It definitely, the other world was not. It's moving and it's works and it's in our, which we grew up in. They are different, but they're not. There's one choice dominate the other, which school of Mitchell. And yet we are in a new day. I believe that we can create new. We can do what no one else has done yet. We're doing exactly what we're doing right now, listening to you think. So thank you for that. Ricardo Walker.
Great. Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure we're not losing something Sophia said earlier, and that is coming up with this minimum amount of years, but also that number of hours that Skippy mentioned earlier. I think that is a very important metric that we do at least need to track and understand as we're moving forward. And I also just was looking through the draft consolidated recommendations, that version 6. I did just want to point out to folks and maybe ask a very brief question to Samuel, if you don't mind, Samuel. Right now, we are, I think it's in there, requiring basic life support training for these folks who will be applying for this accelerated process. I haven't gone through that training, but from a little bit of research, it sounds pretty straightforward. 2 to 4 hours, and then you have a 2-year certificate. But Samuel, I guess if you wouldn't mind a quick question, do you feel like that is reasonable and also important / necessary for these folks who are going through this accelerated process?
Absolutely. I think that minimum qualifications, especially when it comes to safety, I think, if not all of us, would agree that, general life support training or CPR you have to think, 100 years ago, CPR wasn't a thing, and now it's very life-saving. We have an understanding for it, and I actually think, as somebody who has been briefly trained in, and how to run at the Mescal or in Sweat Lodge, this is just my personal opinion, is general safety training for anybody who has been a part of that, I think has always been important. Just because of the simple fact that, a lot of people don't understand when you go into a hot space, you shouldn't go into a hot space if you have high blood pressure, because people don't think about those things. And now that we have a means of checking blood pressure, it's important. So yes, absolutely. I think there should be a minimum qualifications on that. And I think it should be fairly widely accepted, I think, in most Indigenous communities nowadays, versus what it would have been like, 60 years ago. So
thank you very much.
Thank you. Skipping.
I just wanted to flesh out a little bit more of what you were talking about, Veronica. two points. The first is on the kind of relative qualification opportunities or accreditation opportunities. And then the second, which I'll circle back to, and you guys can be my memory if I forget, is sort of this like alternative method of accreditation. Let's call it, experientially observational, where you're really putting someone into the practice and observing them, which I really appreciate you bringing up. I think that's super interesting. On the first one, I just want to share what we've been talking about, just so that we can then get your feedback or others. But at the last full board meeting, what we were talking about in the, let's call it like the regular path, the non-accelerated path, is 140 hours of dedicated specific training. And it was, I think, 20 or 35 hours of like practice applied training, which is certainly less than 3 years. I mean, you can take it at the pace you take it, but I imagine that most people would be doing that in about a year. And so I just want to name that so you can think about them side by side in terms of what they are, and then also just qualify that with saying that the whole point of the accelerated track is that it's to accelerate. And so it's not saying that if you haven't started at all, if you're at square zero, that year-long, let's call it, path is available to anyone and everyone. You may not choose it, but it's available to you. What this accelerated path is there for is for people that have already been doing the work like yourself, so that we're not making you go back and in addition to all of the work that you've done, which may be better training in many ways than the kind of year-long program, that you don't have to repeat that. So I hope that part was clear, but I just wanted to at least say that. So if that brings anything up that we should consider or that we could do better, you can help us understand that, or others. And then on the second piece, which I love when people bring up new or different ideas to old problems. And I think accrediting people for important positions is a very old problem. I love the idea of experiential observation. You acknowledge some of the challenges, which is who sits and receives the medicine, who's the person making the determination. Implied in that is like, how much time do they spend? Are they getting paid? Where do they come from? What's their accreditation? All of that. And yet, I think it's a really interesting suggestion. And so I just wonder for everyone else on the call, just so we don't just breeze by that, is that something that we should consider rather than say hours and years and letters of recommendation? Or is it something that we should be considering side by side, as you could do this or you could do this? So I just wanted to kind of open up the floor to hear some perspective.
Thank you. We're at 2:09 right now in the afternoon. We'll have a bit more that we need to discuss. All of what you have said has been duly including your suggestions, criteria. We will take a look at that over between now and the next time that we meet. We'll refine it. So we find quite a few suggestions about what criteria to use. And with regard to Dr. Cicely and Mr. Medina and myself and others here, we're concerned about people, as Mr. Medina put it, they get to make it, not fake it to make it. I think that we will have a discussion about the criteria for Annette, N-E-T, Annette, to contain persons I didn't think to prevaricate. And that may be a recommendation, for instance, if in tie application fraud into laws that already exist, for instance, which is not up to us, but it should be to us with bias, so that there is that guardrail against something that most all of us as practitioners have time and sleep again. It's the misuse of medicine. So we can despite barriers to that by speaking it out loud. and sometimes it's very hard to meet people, especially those who are incredibly ego ambitious. And so but it's an issue, and it's something in terms of criteria thing. So I'm going to close this part of the discussion. And if you have any other ideas, shoot them off to Ms. Bratton or to the other people here who are taking very good notes about what we are saying here. And I'd like to know, Mayor Chair, you saw mentions criteria for approval in your packet that was prepared by Dr. Gonzalez, who is such a good mind in terms of organizing data and has so much experience and background in helping different communities in terms of equity, inclusion, belonging, all the good things that are really important to this work. And so we want to discuss this. Do you have any thoughts on the generational pathway recommended? And do you have any questions of Dr. Gonzalez? Generational pathway, which we talked about briefly to the sometimes young people, because people we teach that wait off the where you're from. And do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any questions for Dr. Gonzalez? Dr. Gonzalez, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Are you Are you suggesting that criteria be bypassed, other criteria, like the ones we just discussed, be bypassed if there is a strong generation animator, with walking, that comes from within a certain group or familia? Is that what you're saying, Lady Chairs?
So yeah, I think there's a hand up. So I'll answer that as soon as the other question's asked.
Thank you. I would just love for Dr. Gonzalez to us to put that sheet on the screen and her to kind of explain it a little bit. I mean, I read through it in detail, but it would be really great if she kind of discussed it just for a few minutes, and then we can ask questions. Maybe my questions will be answered in that right there.
And I apologize, I saw that there was a typo, but this isn't the final document, and it's not a standalone document. So I took some notes from the discussion today, and so I think I captured some of the essence that was discussed. So this really came about when Dr. Hannum released her subcommittee's document on qualifications, licensing, and training. And then listening to Dr. SS, and I believe that Dr. Naz actually had thrown it out there as a flyby suggestion, but I kind of hooked onto it, of having individuals who have that traditional or historical generational knowledge, instead of them having to go through some of those 4 bridges of getting licensed, that they would be able to bypass that with the creation of and you guys call it a tribal council. We can name it whatever else might be more fitting, but basically a collaborative council. So it would be the tribes, the tribal council, and all of your elders, like you guys were saying, who would actually make that referral. And I'm just going to use Dr. Naz as an example, as a member of the community. So if I was your elder and I said, hey, I want to get this person licensed, they don't need to prove their schooling, their time, or their testing, because we're giving them that recommendation and actually signing off on them having all of that information and all of that credentials that are being required. But then we would also bring in other state leaders to actually sign off as well, so that we can kind of have the buy-in from the state. And what this council does is it actually keeps those records. So they would actually track all of the referrals coming from this council, to make sure that they're check marking all of everything that was said today, plus some additional items to make sure that that individual is kind of who they say they are, can do what they can do, and kind of have the blessing from both sides of individuals. And so it kind of captured the essence of what was being discussed, but it really kind of alleviates and kind of really respects some of that cultural and generational knowledge that has been passed down. And even if your elder was your grandfather, he's still signing off as the elder, not as your grandfather. So his name is kind of out there as, oh, I'm signing off on this. Not as blood, but as, yes, this person knows what they're doing. So it kind of captures that as well. So it kind of puts together a whole council that would actually do that and kind of use some of the credentialing qualifications and training in Dr. Hedup's document. So this would just be an added line item and then kind of where that is. And so I kind of went out there to see if anything like that existed in Colorado. The closest thing, well, the first thing I found was in the state of New Mexico. They actually have a Senate bill that was passed that kind of created that State Tribal Collaboration Act. So I kind of pulled some of the verbiage from there while I was developing this. And then in Colorado, there's a Colorado Tribal Council Collaborative. And it's really not something that meets, but it's just a way to communicate with the tribes. And so I kind of attached that in, I don't know if it's here, but as an attachment just to kind of reference, where I pulled some verbiage from there as well. And so.
Good job. There's a lot of material put together in a cohesive way. It did it. It's absolutely appreciate it. All right, so you see this, you know, you'll have further questions of Dr. Consolidated. Is the posing path at all? We spoke earlier with regard to criteria, specific criteria about another pathway, and she's looks like other pathways as well. I believe this is good. In my experience, remember, was the VHS. I will run to a group of VHS means for people. We're in our 80s, in our late 70s. I'll roll into my 79th year next month. Little kinds of things. And one of the things we think about all of this is that we speak practitioners who are ethical, but they will go underground and stay underground. They will not want to, in part because of literacy issues. I'll speak more about that, but also because they practice for so long, freely. You know, I wouldn't say underground, but in their communities. And they would be mind-boggled by having to do equivalencies even. And I think there's a certain amount of respect to be given to people who have lived a very long time, live a devotional way. To say we might not be able to gather all persons here, but this really, really good way to head them up and move them out. This is a very good way to gather people together. So that being said, I want to say this, that I practice from time to time when I'm the good VHS, who is a medicine person. I didn't realize until recently when I asked him to write something that he appeared on the table. And so I want to make sure, and I hope you don't get tired of saying to people between accommodations of that, going to profess their teachership of someone. They may need to do it verbally. They may need to do it maybe on a cell phone film or something that they actually do have mastery of. but going to be, in fact, it would be humiliating to ask them to do something that they literally do not. So just that consideration, I'd like to see it in your criteria somewhere, that there's an alternative means to validate for people. And we don't need to say they can't read or write. I come from people who could read or write. My whole family could not read or write. So, but they were wise in so many ways. And that's true of all of us. So I'd like to see that in here somewhere. I'm not quite sure about it, but we'll have several consultants here. Dr. Ness.
I'm sorry, I do apologize. I am at my current day job and I was briefly interrupted. I'm just curious if this document that Dr. Gonzalez drafted up, if this was sent out or not.
It was. You mean to the board members?
If it was just available to read for anybody to read, I was just curious.
Ms. Bratton, do you have an answer to that?
I'd be happy to send it to you.
Thank you.
Alrighty then. Any other questions for Dr. Gonzalez? Ms. Bratton.
I just wanted to take a quick second and ask our Attorney General, Ashley, if there's any concerns that she can see in the document, since it does have New Mexico Act and other things included in the packet material. Would you be able to take a look at that, Ashley, and maybe respond if there is something that we need to be aware of?
Yep. Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt the actual policy discussion, because that was really excellent with kind of the legal part of it. But Dr. Gonzalez, since you're presenting this, are you thinking of this license type as something that would kind of bypass all training and all that you wouldn't have to complete the training requirements that they're setting up for the other facilitator license?
So on the qualifications, licensing and training document, under license number 1, facilitator license under wellness, on section number 5, to obtain a licensed wellness natural medicine facilitator license, the applicant must, and there's 4 criteria. So this would actually be the 5th criteria. So it would be adding to that, and then everything on there is on here. It's just that we're bypassing those testing, schooling, and time, because the council should be able to clarify and validate all of that. And so it's less hoops that they have to jump through, but we're still kind of getting that written kind of support from both tribe and from our leadership at the government. And I put the governor's office in there just because in the Colorado Tribal Council, they're a sign off on that. So I didn't know if we wanted to mirror how they created that council to this one, or if we wanted to make a recommendation to kind of look at that and see which is the best fit for generational kind of licensure or accreditation.
And then the only kind of concern that this brings up for me is we have the limited waivers of the educational requirements is kind of where the exception that is created for the accelerated learning program. Just to give meaning to that word limited waivers, to the extent if this kind of program is kind of more of just a general broad waiver, I'm not sure if that would violate that part of the statute that requires just limited waivers. And then I'm not sure if there kind of would be practical problems with setting up that council. I think generally licenses, in DORA are approved, fairly quickly by staff as long as they meet all the requirements. Having things kind of be approved by this kind of outside council could kind of slow that down as opposed to how licenses are normally approved. But I do understand that this would, and then kind of also setting up that council could possibly require a change to the statutes rather than having it be something that the director of Indora could just kind of assign.
And that's come I use those 2 acts that were out there, because one of the recommendations is yes, take it back to the legislator to see if they can approve and actually create this council. And would this council just be a subcommittee of another legislative council that's out there, or would we actually be creating a new, and I don't mean like the whole cabinet for the governor's office, but like a cabinet member would actually take initiative of this and actually run the council. And so there's two kind of venues you could go through. They're both paperwork, but at the end of the day, once it's kind of set up, it eliminates and kind of respects and shows that we're respecting the generational kind of knowledge that individuals are bringing and not requiring them to kind of prove it. And really bringing in that voice of their leaders and of their tribal councils and presidents.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Curry. We all do. Look, no way we can know what you. For sure. We are going to move in a moment to the last part that we'll need to do before we meeting. But in the meantime, we're going to hear from Dr. Chavez and from Joseph Medina. Dr. Chavez.
I really like the part that is in here that says promote the collaborations between the state and local governments, tribal governments, and leaders. I think that piece right there really supports the areas that we just talked about earlier. For example, if we have a liaison, a designated agency tribal liaison or liaisons that speak for community that are in the Mexica communities, are in the different Native American communities, that we have these liaisons that can then support those individuals who may have difficulty with reading or writing, as you mentioned earlier. I was thinking about what you said with families and friends, individuals who have been taught their medicine to generations, to have, someone that represents them as well. Because a lot of times you don't know how much you know. I learned that from you, Dr. B. Sometimes all this, and you have all of this information and all of this knowledge, and you don't know how to put it down on paper, and you don't know how to maybe communicate it verbally. But so to have those liaisons available to our community members, I really like that piece from the New Mexico, piece in here, because it helps those individuals in our community who might miss out otherwise. And if they have agency liaisons who can help them verbalize it, can help them document it, that would really help our individuals that we're talking about who work in community and maybe don't have all of that documentation or university documentation, whatever that may be. But I think that would be really important for our Indigenous folks and our Mexica folks. I just think it's very beneficial that we should include that. Thank you.
Hold on un momentito. Mr. Medina, are you staying with us? Absolutely. Okay. Let us do this for now. For our next meeting, if you would please think of the criteria of guardrails against, and I think I do want to use the word against, charlatans. Mr. Medina will get to you in a moment. I see you lost the feed there for a second. Welcome back. For those who are board members who are not familiar with this, when people come to the retreats in Curandismo, which is the area that I know best, and they have a business card on it says curandero, where it says shaman on it. It's not necessarily a reason to reject that. They may be autodidacts, they may be self-taught for years, but it is reason, absolute reason, to talk to them about it, because it's in our traditions since forever that we never call ourselves by a title. If other people think we hold hands-on healing, beings, the spirits, apparitions, visitations, insights into, through talking, insights into what underlies such pain, that they are the people who call us by a name that fits for them. And so rejecting people out of hand, I've learned as I've gotten older, I more of a firebrand when I was younger, but is to be looked into. So I'm asking you for our next meeting to think about how can we make a gentle and fierce boundary. Gentle meaning inquiry if need be, fierce saying no if necessary, and whomever or whatever, because it is not yet, in the operative word is yet, it's not yet cohesive. It's not yet valid, put it that way, valid in our way of thinking. So think about those matters, and we will take that up as a separate issue. Mr. Medina.
Okay, so I hope hopefully this isn't too out of context with what we're discussing. It's just something that came to mind, so I figured I'd bring it up as a grower, just for the simple fact that I just wanted to see, and if we can't answer this now at a later time, would be fine too. I was just curious towards how things are going to be viewed at from the grower's perspective. Like, are they going to place? And like I said, if this is something we can't answer now, that's fine. It just came to mind as far as just something that came up, as far as not necessarily scrutiny, but like typically, if you're a healer and you're gathering your own medicine, right? So we're talking about a practitioner stage, but also, so where's the medicine coming from? Is the medicine coming from or indigenous people? Are we going to be able to certify those people as growers? I mean, as far as the complexity between, practitioners one thing, but then, where do you get your medicine from? Because you need the medicine to do the, to do the healing. But I was just curious on how that, and like I said, if that's something, I do apologize for kind of going off tangent. That's just something that came to mind. But, if it's something that can be answered or if not, like I said, we could, even table that for some other time, or even if it's some other panel that deals with the production side of it. But I was just kind of curious on how that was going to coincide with one another. Right? Get the practitioner is one thing, but then, is everybody going to be allowed to, but like I said, if that's something that can't be answered at this time too, I totally understand. If that makes sense.
There is a subcommittee on manufacture and production. Be in touch with Miss Brett about that you're not off topic. There are areas that need to be spoken to, and hopefully our subcommittee, just say so. I'm please do. It definitely impacts people that will sleep. The other area is food, is what scores are qualified. The can't is 1 or 2 or have to be very, it will be at different levels. Like, it's just my 2 cents worth. But your question is very germane. So that before I leave, I'm going to tell you that your thing is very, very strong in Spain amongst the Sephardi, who are part of how curanderismo got put together from the Jews, people that lead the Spanish Inquisition. Medina is a very strong name for that ritual. And that's why I call you Medina, not Medina. Honor your heritage.
Much respect. Thank you.
Gracias. Respeto también. Okay, so let us close this part of the discussion. Does anybody have their hand up? If you do, let me see. Oh, we do. Okay. Mr. Barami. Mr. Barami?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I couldn't get off mute, but Mr. Medina, I will send you a link for the Department of Revenue's upcoming cultivation and manufacturing practices meeting that's related to your question. And I think that's that is an appropriate question for that conversation, as that is definitely part of the considerations for rulemaking. So I'll send you the link. It's going to be on Monday, December 11th, 2 to 4 p.m. And then there's a link for that and an agenda. And then you can also see the previous meetings, which are recorded. And I think there was a previous cultivation meeting, but I'm happy to send that over. I can send that to all the non-voting participants and board members. So they're aware of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barami. Appreciate it. Dr. Chavez.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Medina that what he's talking about is very important. We've had someone else on, I can't remember which subcommittee it was, but he is on the production and research. And one of the things that I mentioned to him is what you were talking about that's very important. When plants are planted or seeds are put into the ground, there's a lot of prayer and ceremony that takes place. The changing the moon cycle ceremonies taking place, plants. And then one of the things that concerns me, and I didn't want this to hit us at the outside and say, you know, we didn't think about this, but growing up with people who did a lot of planting, and I'm connected to people in Mexico who are working to heal the earth, the byproducts are sacred as the plant was alive. You know, what are we doing with them? You know, I read something about composting, but even the composting in community, and I don't know that your family does this, but there's prayer, there's gratitude for what you offered us, right? And so I think that your contributions, I'm just suggesting that you attend that meeting and possibly get as involved as you can, because the component of the Indigenous piece regarding growing the plant, taking care of the plant, and then taking care of the byproducts afterwards, those are all really important things that we don't want Indigenous communities to say, this is a sacred plant and you're just throwing it, you know? And it served a purpose and it needs to be put into the ground respectfully and mindfully. So I think that I'm just suggesting that you take part in that as someone who is a cultivator and can grow a plant or takes care of the sacred plant. Thank you.
Thank you. To add to that, Mr. Barami, I don't know if Mr. Medina can serve as your non-voting member of the manufacturing and cultivation subcommittee, but he would be excellent rather than him listening in and not being able to comment. I hope that there might be a pathway for you in particular.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Chair. I can clarify. Yeah, he can. He is not a. He's not a appointed board member, subject to or board policy on this that could lead to those meetings being considered board meetings. If we have more than a certain number of members there, we do have a. I think it's Dr. Sicily, but I have to double check. But we do have another board member there who would be listening in. But for the non-voting participants, that they participate in the Department of Revenue's listening sessions, and we do encourage folks to take part in that, as well as go back and take a look at some of the previous meetings that have happened. And these are up until this part of the year, right? But there's going to be more coming up once we get into 2024. So I'll draft an email and I'll send that out in a moment.
Mr. Brownie, thank you for seeing that through. You always are responsive and really appreciate that. And I'm positive that your inbox is tilted and ready to fall on the floor because I can. Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Oh, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so now let us see if anybody else has anything to say. Ricardo Baca, were you there? Or have you stepped away now? There you are. You are like me. I'm not on camera because I was eating my breakfast.
Yeah. Just having a little bit of a bite, Chair.
You know, Mr. Baca, you are a writer. You are an accomplished writer. And my question to you, how do you make a brief outline for us about and how the committee had sent it to us? A skeletal outline for how to think about guardrails for people who may not yet be trained well enough or who might train to not tell the truth about what their background is. In other words, just a brief, paragraph subject for us to think about, to give bones. What I realized what sometimes I talk to my committee here, but also other words that I write. It's so useful for people to talk, around like their idea. You are an expert in the cannabis industry. You wrote for 3 years, I believe, or more, books. They're cannabis. So I know that, you have that expertise. Would you be willing to do that?
I'd be happy to, absolutely. And when you're asking me to create this kind of basic outline for our subcommittee, is it in relation to what we've been talking about today, Clarissa? Primarily about how some guardrails to keep in mind about this accelerated training program and the potential use about a generational pathway?
I would say so. I think because you're a good listener, I'm going to track what you talk about, say here. You drilled down into the material. So I would leave it to your discretion to decide to speak about whatever you want. Guardrail is the opportunity, like how do we protect the public? Because that is the entire door of public search. How do we protect what we're doing here so that it's very clear? Very good. I would add that if you can say something about children, protection of children, protection of elders who have dementia. In other words, there are a lot of people who are vulnerable. So if you can say something about that too, so we can think that through and recommendations, that would be great.
Happily will. Yeah, thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Really our honor. It's our honor. Thank you. All righty, we are going to move ahead. I'm scrolling through this big shoot leaves. They're hard. Okay. So we are, hold on. Momentito más. There's one last item. It is large because it's a comprehensive, also in-depth document, and that is with the Consolidated. You have seen that document with parts. The question here today is, as you reviewed it, did you find any areas of the document that require a recommendation from this committee that have not already been discussed? In other words, it's here, source recommendations document, version 7, landing board chair. You see the recommendation for Indigenous and underrepresented decision making. Decision making. Creating is so tiny. It's like 8-point type or 7-point type, and 12-point is considered readable. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's better a little bit. Okay, so And you see the awesome that Dr. had both here putting this document together also. Quite a few other people too, but Lundy Dr. Hunt really done a yeoman's job. I can stay at Lisa. And you the way. So the question is, did you find any areas that need added to, or did you bring in areas that need to be nuanced differently and better, or worse? No, not worse. Better or different? Do you see any gaps? Is there anything you want to add to it at this time? You have another opportunity to add to this. It doesn't have to be right this second, but if you do know something, state it. Not just like in your relationship. It is extensive. Interest.
Fine.
Good evening. You look precious. Anything on that? I think that we did. Just scroll through. Looking. Okay. I realize that, and you do too, we all realize that the reading material is not only extensive, but it's also down. I keep hoping for a graphic novel to explicate all of this so I could read it. But probably not this time. Maybe next year. I mean, but I would like to be again before meaning this document. Make sure that it can be any little crack that ought to be filled. When you see something that ought to be added, used to something that ought to be defined, or you see something that you think maybe is the right place within the document needs to be moved elsewhere, or you think you would like to omit that, come next time and be prepared. So, and we will absolutely significantly that we will close this part of the meeting as there are no further comments or questions. And we will move to be again, and you hear my appreciation of we mostly do but I feel like I hope that my liking so easily is apparent to Dr. Gonzalez, you took it on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm curious if anyone knows when the next meeting for the licensing and credentialing is. And two, if it's worth kind of bouncing the document that I created, kind of sharing it with them just to get their reactions and kind of some feedback. So the next time we meet, we can actually say, yes, we want to use this as a recommendation to that subcommittee with the voice of this subcommittee. If that makes sense.
Ideal. Excellent idea. That's something we talked about at the very first part. How to speaker documents with each other, but also goodwill and other things to relationally about the venture. So good point. Ms. Bratton, is that?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let Dr. Gonzalez know that the next Qualifications, License, and Training Subcommittee meeting is December 21st. There's also one in January on the 18th. In your materials folder is the schedule for all subcommittee and full board meetings for the next year. So that's available to you. You can download it, add it to your calendars. And I am happy to share that information with that committee, and I will talk to the chair about adding it into the packet. Thank
Right.
you.
Does that answer your question, Dr. Consolidated?
Yeah, it does. I didn't want to lose it, but since it's kind of in and also for this subcommittee, when we kind of read everything and we reconvene next month, if the document that I created, if that makes more sense to add it to the credentialing, or if it makes more sense to add it under the training and credentialing for the accelerated, because I know there's two topics, and kind of two documents floating out there. So does it make sense to combine them or to keep them separate? And that would be kind of for us to discuss next time.
If you would please, the records, in spreadsheet, who is ready down, please step up on. Read it, good. So then, was there. Dr. Gonzalez would say both in the add your document, both, but we'll leave that out for the subject. Right. So, is there any other business before we wrap? I want to thank all of you for participating, especially for participating, for speaking for us, candidly in your heart, altering mind, our told here. Your candidness is important. Kindness comes across very deeply, all of you, every single one. And it's so appreciated. Someday, we're allowed, because we're under a certain set of rules, but someday when we're allowed, please let us break bread together. It would be glorious and beautiful. And we will have so much in common, laugh together. Maybe we could sing together, but that all kind with one another who are familiar, who are people who are accepted, which you all are. So thank you so much for being here, for your attendance. And I know that many of you are speaking from where you work. I'll appreciate that too. Some of you are speaking. Some of you have been children. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. So next meeting will be January 12th, 2024, at 1 p.m. And it's the script here says it's aligned. The first thought I had is it's aligned with the full moon in the last of the winter solstice, but that's fine. It says it is aligned with our cadence of meetings falling on the second Friday of the month. And please remember that your myth is, it says necessary, but I would say critical to our work here. Also, to ensure a quorum, because you're, if they don't quorum, so your presence is very, very appreciated. You can check the calendar included in the materials folder for all of the 24 meetings. And some people prefer to see, say, other people comfortable with looking into the folder. They know where to find it. They know how to read it. So we have at least 2 capsules. One display. The other through the vibes. I believe Brad is been asked and put together. Thank you. And so now I'm ready to move to close meeting. Because ask the attestation. You attest in a freedom that all conflicts of interest have been disclosed, the confidentiality of all board matters. This rules for highest of a mess.
I attest. Thank you.
You attest, Dr. Studies.
Attest to, yes.
Could be up to misery.
I do attest.
I was all back.
I exist.
Thank you so much. I now call for a motion and a second to go turn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
And you second.
Seconded from Ricardo.
I was sick. Discussion? Being done. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Frank will say nay. Say it now. Any abstentions? Meeting of the Indigenous, which is words so my thing. I think to look at.
Thank you.
May you be watched over. Because may you be warned. That's what it. Yeah.
Happy holidays. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, everybody take care.